Hey everybody, Foley here. Welcome to the weekly news recap, the 13th to the 19th of April 2026. So this week there was the Galaxy Showcase for spring 2026, and Galaxy Showcase is typically indie games and occasionally some like double A's, very rarely some triple A's. And honestly, it was kind of disappointing. I'm gonna go through like a couple of games. We're just gonna kind of rapid fire these because there were a lot of games. So Hell Let Loose Vietnam, it's a new like massive Vietnam um, multiplayer shooter thing. Task Time is a friend slap thing. Atomic Heart has getting its fourth DLC and I think its final story DLC. Glass House actually looked kind of interesting. So it's kind of an isometric RPG. It's not entirely clear what the game is actually about. I think you are playing dual protagonists. It's kind of got a mix of this kind of CRPG kind of thing, and then there's like some stealth elements, and as you saw earlier, there's some combat elements as well. What exactly the game's about, I don't really know. I think there's some kind of psychological trauma thing going on. And it seems to be set in some sort of steampunk dystopia thing. Yeah, solving murders or just get out of the place or fall down the stairs and die immediately. That could probably work too. Anyway, that's that. Glass House. I don't think it has like a release date. No, it's a wish listy. It's a wish listy thing. Yeah, Sovereign Tower. Sovereign Tower struck me as a kind of not a Papers, Please, but like a Crusader Kings, or like a Civ kind of thing. If the only thing you did was the Solomon's Bargain kind of stuff. Revamp we've seen before. It's the same developer behind Cataclysmo. It's kind of like a reverse dungeon crawler, where a reverse Castlevania, where you're playing Dracula and there are heroes trying to come in and kill you, and you're just setting out where your monsters are, arranging the castle and like difficult terrain and stuff like that. Delivery Must Complete, I think we've seen before. Its initials are DMC, Devil May Cry, and it is kind of going for that. It's like dogfighting Devil May Cry in some ways. So very fast paced, very action, very arcade. Delivery Must Complete. I'm not sure. I guess you are trying to make a delivery, but also you're in like a military fighter jet. It's kind of a bit silly. Clearly, it doesn't take itself very seriously. But I don't know. It seemed pretty cool. And I think we have seen it before. But it's, yeah, devilmayfly.com. Like, they're clearly that's what they're going for. Echo Breaker. I don't remember. Swan Song was kind of a puzzle game about like music boxes and just fitting the components together to complete music kind of thing. Witch Spire early access. I feel like it's a survival thing, but you're a witch. Directive 8020 you've seen a few times now. It's the next Dark Pictures game. Should be out pretty soon. Prime Monster is a pun on Prime Minister, but you're a monster. So you could be Dracula, or you could be like an orc king, or you could be whatever, but it's a sort of satirical idea of being head of parliament kind of thing. Mouse PI for Hard, we'll talk about that in the new releases. Scramble Knights, I think, is a kind of like party game, I think. Or is it Scramble Knights Royale? Yeah, it's a battle royale. The sounds of things. Construction Simulator Evolution is effectively Construction Simulator 2. I don't know what Second Stone is. Re-announcement trailer. It doesn't sound good. Did you not get the point across on the first announcement? Okay, action adventure hack and slashy type thing. I like the art style. That's nice. That's very pretty. It does look fairly generic, though. Yeah, I don't know. Looks like an action adventure thing. So some of the shots are quite nice. Mojo Party is effectively, like the Watch Mojo thing, but it's what the fuck what's it called? Jackbox Party Pack. Like it's just a bunch of party games. Sucker for Love, Crush Landing is actually, I'm not sure. Sucker for Love is like a dating simulator, but all of the dates are like monstrous creatures. The sucker part being like Cthulhu. Sucker for Love, Crush Landing. Oh, maybe it's like what's the thing? What's that game called? No, I'm Not a Human. I think it might be that, but the Sucker for Love characters. Dawn of Defense is maybe one of the first this looks like a mobile game that was on the Galaxy Showcase, and there were a lot of them. Hunt Down Overtime is like a very old school side-scrolling shooter, like a 8-bit, 16-bit, like almost Contra-like kind of thing. Spacecraft, survival thing in space. Forever, I think, is also a kind of hack and slash action-adventure thing. Hitting early access. Northgard Battlegrounds, again, seemed like a mobile direct thing. Sorry for any of the developers, but that's what it looks like. Frostrail, it seems like almost like a Lethal Company, but guns and snow, and that's kind of the deal. Guitaria Fables 2, I was not familiar with Guitaria Fables 1, but it's like a top-down action-adventure Zelda, like old Zelda-like thing. War Drum is kind of a roguelike rhythm action thing, but everyone's like not quite pre-civilization, Stone Age, I guess, kind of thing. Calls a Loop is a puzzle game with like time distortion and time rewinding and having multiple copies of yourself performing different actions, kind of puzzle games. The Back World kind of starts off as a pretty standard RPG, very old school RPG, but then descends into a kind of weird backrooms thing. Busbound, it's a bus simulator game. 33 Immortals has been coming out for a million years, it seems. Next game from the Spiritfarer devs, it's very different to Spiritfarer. It's a 33-person multiplayer dungeon crawl, effectively. World of Tanks, but actually is a mobile game. I don't think this one actually is a mobile game, but World of Tanks is. Anyway, Hotel Architect is what it sounds like. It's Sim Hotel. Caribou Trail, I think was like a World War One. Oh, that's not World War One. Maybe it is. Yeah, that's World War One. Okay. I think it's kind of like World War One, but make it. I mean, it was a horrific thing anyway, but I think the idea is like make it kind of a horror, almost walking sim thing. Only it's the middle of World War One. Don't think it had a release date. Maybe wishlist, probably. Skip too far. Oh no, it does. May 14th. Okay. Wall World Strategy. I don't even know what that is. Skip. Rivage is a first-person puzzle thing, and again, I think it has a kind of time travel or time rewinding or time zone timeline thing. It is Raw Fury, so it is probably going to be at least decent. I think that's kind of the gist of it. I think it's like you're on board a ship and there's meant to be multiple people on the ship with you, but you're the only one there anymore, something like that. I don't remember what Akatori is. What's Akatori? I have no memory of this game. Okay, side-scrolling, beat 'em up, action platformer stuff. Doesn't look too bad. I don't like that the camera is so far away though. As I said, we're ripping through these quickly. Silent Road is not really worth talking about, I think. I think it's like spooky ghosts on the road kind of thing. The Merleys, I don't remember. Forever Skies, is that the like just fucking survival thing where everybody's on a... No, it's not. It might still be a survival thing, but it's not the thing I was thinking of. Maybe it was? No. Building Pioneer Airship. Anyway, it's another early access building survival thing. There's like a million of them at this point. RuneScape is still putting out new stuff. Their League's 6 demonic packs seems like a way to go through RuneScape really, really fast. Like you level up really quickly, you get good gear very fast, like that kind of thing. Yeah. What is Lee's word? I only watched this fucking showcase a couple of days ago. Don't remember half these games. That's what I said when there were so many of them. I'm getting first-person puzzly thing. Got like a pig friend and some sort of glider, maybe a car. Still not entirely sure what kind of game it is. Don't be a survival thing. There's too many of them. It seems like it's a survival thing though. Yeah, we're doing some crafting. Yeah, This is on You're Not Beating the Allegations here. I don't know. I always think it's like some kind of first-person puzzle thing. Maybe some crafting elements, maybe some small survival elements, but it doesn't look like it's a full-on typical early access survival thing. Study in Blue looks like a pretty cool detective game. What exactly you're trying to discover or anything like that, I think it's like something happened to your family member and nobody else wanted to talk about it. It's going to be like a multiple protagonist thing. I imagine there'll be multiple different scenarios and all the characters converge at once kind of thing. But yeah, it looks pretty good. Or it looks interesting at least. Pecking Order is a kind of party game where everybody plays. I think it's like a team of worms versus a team of birds, and the birds are trying to eat the worms, and the worms are trying to escape. It's kind of the gist of it. When Sirens Fall Silent, we have seen like this a couple of times. There's nothing really new in this trailer. Well, sorry, there is a lot new in the trailer, but there's nothing like to suggest any gameplay changes or anything like that. It's the next game from the developers by Martha is Dead. It's the game where you cut your own face off. Whether it'll similarly be as graphic, I don't know. Don't remember what Star Dream is. We got driving. We got old school, but also somehow the future. We got first persons and driving, and I think it's some sort of Truman Show jazz. Yeah, I think the gist of it is everyone goes to like a space station, and you're told that it's going to be like a great place to live and something, but there's shenanigans going on. Name of the Will is like a pretty creepy side-scrolling survival horror kind of thing, where people are in like a school cult. Everyone's wearing these masks, but over time people are getting hit and like abused and stuff, and the masks are cracking, and you can actually see into the real person, and they're fucked up. Anyway, 83 looks like a standard multiplayer thing shooter. Erbo Buena we've seen before. It's a sort of first-person gimmick puzzle game. The satellite dish gun thing that you have here just changes the environment. I think it lets you like copy the actions of one item or the properties of one item and apply it to something else. So one thing they showed in the game was like you copy a trampoline and apply it to a car, and now the car is bouncy, like this kind of thing. Echoes of Aincrad I've shown before. It just looks like a pretty big, almost a Xenoblade Chronicles kind of thing. It's like a big open map RPG kind of thing. Yeah. Party JRPG. Tales is probably closer, actually. Tales of Arise, maybe. A little bit closer, something like that. I'm a sucker for those kind of games, so I'll probably play it. And then their big ender was a Phasmophobia crossover with Alan Wake. I don't know if anyone is still playing Phasmophobia, but sure, why not? Is there a big crossover between Alan Wake fans and Phasmophobia fans? I don't know. Anyway, outside of the Galaxy Showcase, Metro 2039 was shown off. Got a pretty sizable featurette. It had the cinematic trailer. They showed off a little bit of this gameplay, and there were a good few interviews from some of the developers talking about developing a game in Ukraine while they're getting bombed and their power going out, and having to shelter from like missile strikes and stuff like that, while also trying to develop their games. It's pretty harrowing from the sounds of things. One thing I did find interesting though from this gameplay, and I think they mentioned in the interviews as well, is they're not using Unreal Engine. It's their own engine, which is also a bit nuts to be developing your own engine and bringing out a new game in difficult circumstances, shall we say. The trailer suggests that it's maybe a bit more of like a psychological trauma thing as opposed to like a Fallout clone, which I think a lot of people attribute it to. I think the last Metro distances itself a little bit from the Fallout stuff, but this new one seems like it's going to be a little bit more psychological. Whether it's gonna go almost walking sim with gunplay elements to it, like very linear, very old school game design, like Fear or something like that, or if it's still gonna have a kind of, it's not like the Metro games were open exactly, but they were kind of like big maps to explore around, and I don't know if like a psychological horror, psychological drama thriller lends itself to a big sprawling map. We'll see, but it looks impressive anyway. Coming this winter, so this year. Over in the Epic Game Store, you have until Thursday to grab the Stone of Madness, which is free on the Epic Game Store. Real-time tactical stealth game set in 18th century Spanish monastery. 5 prisoners pool their skills and resources to face their phobias, stave off insanity, uncover the mysteries of the monastery, and find a way to escape. It's a pretty cool game. As it says, 5 characters. There is not permadeath exactly, but it is a prison. Sometimes they can die, sometimes they just accrue so much fear, paranoia, what have you, that they're just unplayable, like this kind of thing. Each character has their own different abilities. Sometimes you'll need to swap them in and out. Some of them just straight up won't be able to complete certain tasks and that kind of thing. It was a good game. I think it was a good game anyway. I only played a brief amount of it though. I never finished it. Anyway, those are some of the games you can play soon. What if you want to play something right now? Well, there's a lot of games came out this week. First up is Pragmata from Capcom. Capcom's first IP in a very long time anyway. What I've seen from reviews, it's doing pretty well. In Pragmata, you are on the moon. Things have gone wrong, as they tend to do in video games and space. You partner up with a artificial intelligence that's also a child, for reasons I'm sure are very important. Well, what's interesting about the game is that they're merging kind of over-the-shoulder shooter stuff from more recent Resident Evil remakes, and this kind of puzzle thing that allows you to like hack the monsters as well. Robots. So Diana, your AI companion, kind of hacks the robots to like expose their like inner circuitry so you can attack it. Attacking them while they're not exposed is very prohibitive, heavy armor, like that kind of thing. So it's a balance of trying to do the puzzles, not getting killed, and then when the puzzle is successful, taking as much advantage of it as you can. And it seems like it's working pretty well. And the game was delayed numerous times, and I imagine it was like a balancing thing to see if they could make this work. Seems like they have. I haven't had a chance to play it myself, but I am looking forward to it. Anyway, that's Pragmata. And then we have Replaced. Similarly, it's been delayed a good few times. Replaced is it's like a side-scrolling action-adventure kind of thing. You're playing an AI that has somehow managed to infect/occupy a human being, and you are trying to basically get away from government types who are trying to reacquire you/kill you. and then trying to figure out, what does it mean? Why are they trying to kill us? What was the whole deal, and what have you? I do find it very funny that the developer had to come out recently and say, there was some review I think that went out that said it was like an AI based kind of thing, and they had to specifically say it's not generative like AI LLM shit that they're talking about. It's that narratively you are an artificial intelligence. It's not using any of the technology that is marketed as AI, and it isn't AI. It's a marketing term. No, this is the old school Blade Runner style AI things. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of AIs, I guess, I don't know. Tomodachi Life Living the Dream. Latest Nintendo game's probably going to be their last first party original Switch game. If you're not familiar with the Tomodachi Life games, it's kind of The Sims, but you don't really control anybody. You just sort of let them do their thing. Give everybody a personality, go pretty deep on it, and that's it. they do their thing. There's some silly scenarios, silly shenanigans. What has been a real detriment to the game is the lack of like online features and online capabilities. Like there's no real way to share your Miis, and a lot of like the screenshotting and video capabilities of the Switch have been disabled for the game. So it's not. I don't think they've been disabled so much as you just can't upload from the Switch itself. So that's been a bit shit. Because in previous Tomodachi games, you could like rather easily share things. You could share your Miis really easily and so on. It's not a thing for this game. Other than that, I think it's a pretty standard Tomodachi game from what I've seen for reviews. It's fun. The scenarios are like, silly, and it's very big streamer bait for that kind of thing. But the lack of the kind of online sharing stuff is a real problem. Mass PI for Hire, again, similarly, I think had been delayed. But this kind of black and white, what's the kind of animation style called? Something like Pipes. I can't remember what it's called now. But the deal being like a old school kind of noir thing, but also clearly old school Mickey Mouse cartoons. Is very like silly. Having the two of them together is very odd. It's got a little bit of friend Roger Rabbit to it as well. From what I've seen from reviews, it's good in like short bursts, like 2 hours of gameplay, 3 hours of gameplay. But playing it like in long sessions, you're going to find that it's a bit samey. That's what I've seen from some reviews anyway. Most reviews are pretty glowing about it, but yeah, there has been a couple of reviews saying that it is a little bit one note after a while. Moving on, Opus Prism Peak, the latest Opus game, I think. It's a kind of visual novel, walking sim kind of thing. The gist of it being is this child you've encountered who's fading away, whether they're actually a ghost or whether some other supernatural thing going on. Not entirely sure. You're a reluctant loser dad type who is maybe going to get an opportunity to redeem themselves with this kid. And there's also strange spirit animals and photography sessions going on. I'm being somewhat flippant about it. It's a good time. It's not a good time. It's a sad time, but it's well presented, we'll say. Cthulhu the Cosmic Abyss, certainly not a good time. Not when Cthulhu's around. This is the latest game from Big Bad Wolf. We've played 2 of their games on the channel. We've played The Council and Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song. The Council was okay. Swan Song was similarly okay, but a little bit better. Plus it had vampires on it. And The Council had a fucking ridiculous twist at the end of it. Anyway, Cthulhu the Cosmic Abyss is following similarly. It's clearly a lot more ambitious, bigger production values. Maybe they actually got some money this time. I played a little bit of the demo. It's pretty dense, at least the demo is, for like different items you can find, different pieces of evidence. Maybe some of it isn't always important. And it's got a little bit of the Cthulhu-ness. The demo doesn't really go into it. It only really like just about touches on it and then ends, which is a bit shit because it doesn't really give you a gist of just exactly how much Lovecraftian stuff we're going to be getting. But from the looks of the trailer, there's a lot of it. Ground Zero is I think it's a Korean developer, but it's a throwback to like old Resident Evil survival horror kind of things. Resident Evil, Silent Hill, that kind of thing. I keep thinking the main character has her arse out. She doesn't. She's wearing pants, but keep thinking she has. Keep thinking she's wearing like a swimsuit or something. It just has really pale legs. That's what I just every time I look at it. That's what I keep thinking. She isn't. Anyway, it's a Resident Evil type. I haven't had a chance to play it myself. I played the demo briefly and was intrigued, but I feel it had some performance issues. So I'm hoping those have fixed themselves. I have bought the game, so we'll probably get around to playing it at some point. Hopefully, if I ever get back to playing games on the channel. Speaking of other games that I have bought and played, Gecko Gods is the next game from Little Kitty Big City dev, I think. If it's not them, they're copying their homework because some of the animations are like one-to-one. Anyway, Gecko Gods is a puzzle adventure game. You're given a big enough map, and your job is to resurrect the Gecko Gods, as it were. And you do this by solving various puzzles about the place. So think of like the kind of mini puzzles you might get in Breath of the Wild kind of thing. It's nowhere near as big as that, but it's that kind of thing. Just sort of moving about the map, finding various puzzles, and there's the occasional dungeon. It's fun for the most part, and the gecko is kind of cute. It has similar performance handling issues like Little Kitty Big City did, but I think it doesn't quite have the charm. But to be fair, that was a very charming game. But the puzzles are interesting, and they're not too taxing wise. I would put this like in the same category, something like Little Gator Game. You know, it's like a chill afternoon activity. It's not gonna overly tax your brain or anything. Anyway, unfortunately, it is now time to talk about the worst part of video games, video game industry. So, this news is going to be old now. At the time of recording, Xbox has come out and changed the price of Game Pass. But at the time, when I was putting these articles together, new Xbox chief says Game Pass has become too expensive. Let's see, can I get my highlights back? Or is it going to be a dick? No, I got them back. Okay. So Asher Sharma, newly installed Xbox chief, sent around an internal memo to Xbox employees basically saying that Game Pass is central gaming value on Xbox. It's also clear that the current model isn't the final one, meaning it needs to be changed. Short-term Game Pass has become too expensive for players. We need a better value equation. Long-term, we will evolve Game Pass into a more flexible system, which will take time to test and learn around. I guess they're beginning the test this week. We'll talk about that next video, but the gist of it is they've reduced the price of Ultimate, but they've gotten rid of Call of Duty. Yeah, so this is just talking about the last time they made a price change in November of last year. Ultimate went up 50%. From the sounds of it, it's just they've just removed that. It's gone back to 20. Yeah, the last time it increased it was 2024, where it went from 15 to 19, or sorry, 17 to 20. And I think that's what it's gone back to. But again, since it's not part of last week's, it wouldn't be a recap if I was talking about this week's. So we'll talk about it next week. That's how it works. Anyway, moving on. Reject. Indie dev devastated after BAFTA pulls trailer at last minute, citing well-being of our guests. So this was a trailer for a game called The Quiet Things. The Quiet Things deals with elements of child abuse, child physical abuse, particularly from their parents or their guardians, and then kind of the self-harm and suicide that can come from those situations. It was also from the developers, quotes, that it was a deeply personal thing, that they were effectively putting their own history into the game, and they had been scheduled to show a trailer during the BAFTA Game Awards, which was last weekend, and it was pulled about less than 24 hours even before the event. It was just it's being pulled and there's nothing you can do about it. They offered to like recut a trailer to like remove things. They had already edited a trailer to make it more palatable for more diverse audience, we'll say. So the game has themes around childhood abuse, self-harm, and suicide. The game itself aims to tackle shame around these issues and open conversation. So you can imagine having the trailer pulled because the issues are difficult. Obviously goes against the intended reason for the game, tackling the shame around these things. And having open conversations. You can't have an open conversation if you're not going to actually talk about it. This is kind of the central problem here. Anyway, trailer for Quiet Things was due to be aired Friday, the BAFTA Game Award ceremony, but was pulled the evening before the event. This is from the developer themselves. Last night, on my way to the nominees party, I got a phone call telling me that the trailer for my indie game, The Quiet Things, had been pulled from the BAFTA Game Awards due to its content. I then walked into the nominees party after crying and cleaning myself up and heard BAFTA on stage, paraphrasing from memory, talking about how proud they were to champion games that deal with difficult and challenging subject matter. That was very hard to hear. So you're having BAFTA, again, paraphrasing from the developer, but talking about how they're proud to champion games that deal with difficult and challenging subject matter while at the same time not dealing with these ones. Not championing them, rather. Anyway. BAFTA, for their part, said that it believed some of the themes could have been a trigger for someone in its audience, which it claims it did not have sufficient time to warn them about. We made a compliance decision not to show a trailer for an unreleased game that contains themes that may be a trigger for some. In consideration of our guests, we are not in a position to sufficiently warn them. We fully support games that engage with difficult subjects, as we made the decision in relation to our event only and with the well-being of all our guests as a priority. Now, you might think that that's fine, but these kind of trailers, they're not like submitted the day of or anything. They're submitted well in advance, and there's a big back and forth on what's allowed, what kind of content has to be cut. Like, they're talking about it here later on in the article that BAFTA's feedback was that they did have to remove some scenes. They had to remove some of the like violent scenes, some stuff that was containing weaponry, this kind of thing, which they did. So I guess that, you know, they make that decision, but at the same time, they could easily have put up the following trailer contains scenes of whatever, trigger warnings, that kind of thing. It's a bit shit to pull the game entirely when your whole thing is about championing these kind of things. Like, it's two-faced in a way. Anyway, they did eventually just put out the trailer themselves. Game seems fine. I haven't looked into it any further than that. It's more the principle of the thing that annoys me. Anyway, moving on. Steam cult hit Fortune's Run might finally get finished now that its developer is out of prison. So, Fortune's Run is a sort of boomer shooter cross immersive sim thing. So a little bit like Duke Nukem, I guess, but not like irreverent humor. Like, it is somewhat not serious, but it's not trying to be a comedy kind of thing. Anyway, January 2025, the developer of Fortune's Run had to put an indefinite pause to development because they were in prison. So a result of them saying they lived a very different life and were a very violent person in the years before. They were initially never went into exactly what the reason they went to prison for, but I don't think that's relevant. I'm writing the Steam post with a computer and not dictating it over the jail phone because they've gotten through parole. It's only been a year. Parole board reviewed my case and instantly kicked my ass out of jail. Hooray! So, I was following this briefly because I played a little bit of the Fortune's Run preview, demo, early access thing, and before it went into early access. I thought it was pretty cool. Bit janky, but it's somewhat expected of an early access game. And then news on Steam that you thought they were going to prison. I was like, well, that's probably the end of the game. But no, their plan at least is to get back to development. They are only out like a month, I think, at the time of this article. So, we'll still see. Actually, no, it's even less than that. Significantly less than that. It's only like 3 days. So, we'll see. Hopefully, they get back to, hopefully they get back to like a steady life and can put that behind them and so on. But if they can get back to making what looked like it was going to be a pretty cool game, that'd be great too. And John Walker and the article are just kind of pointing out, because a lot of people are like, oh, they went to prison. Like, I don't want to be supporting a con or like a violent person or whatever. If you don't believe like the prison system is for rehabilitation, then like, why do we have it? Anyway, moving on. Union wins settlement for Ubisoft Halifax laid off staff. So this was somewhat expected. Like, I don't think Ubisoft were ever going to reopen the studio, but it also seemed pretty obvious that this was illegal action for them to take what was obviously retaliation against unionizing. So if you don't remember, the Ubisoft Halifax team unionized, and was then very, very suspiciously soon afterwards, the whole studio was closed. So the studio closed days after the announcement that 61 of its employees had joined the Games and Media Workers Guild of Canada. Very suspicious. They took out a lawsuit against them. The union took out a lawsuit against Ubisoft, and the union has now revealed that members voted overwhelmingly in favor of a settlement with Ubisoft. I thought it was important to highlight that the union negotiated the deal for its members, having to do 61 and or 71 individual deals. Nobody was ever going to get a fair shake, whereas collective bargaining is definitely the way to go with these kind of things. The success of the negotiation was directly attributable to the solidarity our members showed, their resolve in holding Ubisoft to account, the collecting and sharing of information, and remaining steadfast in advocating for their rights as unionized workers. You love to see it. Now, it doesn't bring the studio back. It doesn't bring back any of the games they were working on, and Ubisoft effectively have got away with just paying to make the problem go away. But without all of that, a lot of those developers would have been looking at nothing, just getting shit canned for no fault of their own. So it's not like the 100% best outcome it could have been, but it's a pretty good outcome, I think. Speaking of not very good outcomes, I guess, Ashes of Creation CEO fires back in legal battle over failed Kickstarter MMO with damning emails about not paying severance. So this is kind of a rebuttal to an earlier article that said the CEO had spent the Kickstarter money on just lavish luxuries, like thousands of dollars on like Magic the Gathering shit and just frivolity in general. Whatever you want to spend your own money on, fine, but if it was like company money, effectively, that's the problem. Anyway, his response to that is to basically say, they're lying. Now, to be fair, if he stopped there, I'd be like, are they though? But he does seem to have evidence to be like, this is maybe a campaign of like muddying the waters, effectively. Anyway, following a report from a YouTuber on 11th of April, which alleged that the CEO had spent the now defunct MMO's funds to fuel a lavish lifestyle, he set out like a long statement, long document, basically saying, that this video and this YouTuber and the investors basically have been just trying to litigate this in public instead of going through the courts. So the public discourse has been flooded with knives out narratives driven by coordinated defamation campaigns orchestrated by the opposing parties in my lawsuit. That campaign has been amplified through content creators, including those serving as a mouthpiece for Jason Karamanis, one of the investors, a known violent individual with multiple prior arrests. Do not mistake noise for truth. Okay, so this it's a he said, she said, and then one of them has evidence of this lavish lifestyle. I don't think they did have evidence so much as it was just the evidence they had was given to them by the investors. So, not exactly an unbiased party here in the lawsuit. The CEO, Sharif, goes on to kind of lay out some exhibits that will be in the lawsuit and if it does go to court. So inside some of those things, one of them kind of stood out is a purported offer for Intrepid Studios from Riot Games. They offered a total investment of 250 to 500 million for a potential acquisition of the studio. CEO declined the offer. And then Mr. Dawson, one of the investors, and Mr. Karamanis, the investor who's alleged to be starting this Knives Out narrative, their tone completely changed, and the two began a campaign, of course, of calls and texts, basically saying, "Why didn't you take the deal? Take the deal. It's a lot of money. Give me the money. Why aren't you getting the money? Get the money now." This all from Karamanis. You're spelled wrong. Amat her fucker. I am talking to you like you need to understand who you're again wrong fucking with. Push me more, asshole. You have no idea. Keep it up, bitch. Good stuff. This is a professional entrepreneur. Anyway, I do not believe we should this. There's another email from the defendants. So this would be investors and a bunch of other members of the C-suite. There's an email dated 8th of January 2026. This would be a couple of days before the game itself went offline. And it reads, "I do not believe we should pay severance or PTO. These are bottom performers who have already been paid more than they deserve. We don't owe them more. You do legally, but okay. If they want to make noise in market, they will anyway as we're fired." They will anyway as we're fired. We are fired? You're firing yourself and not paying yourself severance? Okay. Who listens to a poor performer who gets whacked? How would they know they're a poor performer unless you leak that? But anyway, doesn't matter. They did the job, contractually obligated to pay them. Context, they didn't pay the severance or PTO. This coming from Margaret Cron. She was head of marketing for the studio, and this was like February at some point, where she said, "In the end, none of us are receiving our final paychecks, 60 days notice and pay outlined under the WARN Act. Again, legally obligated to pay that money. PTO payouts or other compensation owed." So at least tracks this, email, and we have like public correspondence to say that, they didn't end up doing it. So it's not like either party are in a good place, but it's clear it's not like a one-sided thing. And who is most at fault arguably doesn't matter because the game's not out, will never be out, has been cancelled, and a bunch of people lost their jobs. Anyway, moving on. Games and movies are rushing to jump into bed while they're still getting to know each other. This is an opinion piece from Lewis Packwood for GamesIndustry.biz. I thought I would bring this up because a bunch of video game adaptations either got trailers recently or had like big announcements. So like the Street Fighter trailer dropped recently that looked bonkers. I'm here for it. And then there was news that Jacksepticeye is working to produce a Bloodborne film, and A24 said that the Elden Ring games or the Elden Ring film is out in like 2028 or something like that. And I thought this article was interesting because it points out obviously the history of video game films has been a bit shit. And it's pointing out that the movie industry is seeing video games as the next comic book, effectively comic book adaptations, book adaptations, what have you. And the article kind of highlights how previously the way adaptations would work in Hollywood is they would give a sum of money to option a book typically, and then an additional sum of money, a much bigger sum of money if they actually made a film out of it. But it tended to be two lump sums, and the studio would own any IP around the film, so they could make, they'd get the sales on the DVDs if they were a thing, they'd get any kind of royalties off streaming, they'd get, if they wanted to make a game out of the film, they'd own all of that and so on. If they wanted to make any merch based off the film, again, they'd get all of that and so on. The type of money you'd be talking about for a single person, an author of a book, it's pretty decent. pretty good money. For a video game studio, it's nothing. It's barely a blip on their budget. So that kind of deal is not going to happen. And the ownership of the IP, also not going to happen. Definitely not. So it's having to go with two kind of competing things, in that typically Hollywood would expect full IP rights, full creative control, and so on, and IP ownership, which they won't be getting, basically, in a video game film adaptation. And from the video game side of things is that they won't have full creative control over the film, typically. Like, Hollywood's not going to allow that for all the money they're putting into it. So there's a clash, basically, on how that's going to work out. And this article, this opinion piece, is basically going into how, if they don't figure out how that's going to work soon, that's going to be a big problem going forward. And it's interesting from a inside Hollywood, inside video game adaptations kind of piece. Anyway, things happening in the community. So I did speak earlier. Is Polygon gonna let me look at this now? Go away. Okay. I did speak earlier how there were a bunch of missing online features for Tomodachi Life, the newest one. But the community is stepping up to fill in the gaps. So you can see here, there's already one for Harry Dubois from Disco Elysium on the left. I'm not sure who on the right is supposed to be. But left is definitely Disco Elysium. So people are making up their own websites and sharing how to make the Miis look like the different characters, and giving them the different stats and the different preferences and what have you, for that kind of thing. And obviously you can, run your Switch through like a game capture card or something to get video, to get this kind of thing, or use that to stream through OBS, and that's a way around the online restrictions. But yeah, the community is going in to fill in the gaps. So don't worry about it. It's frustrating that these things aren't built into the game, because more people would be able to do it and more people would be able to use it. But they're not available, if you get what I mean. Anyway, moving on. 91-year-old woman who received a wellness check from police was just busy gaming. So amazing. I'd love to be that when I'm 91. So there's a police check-in on a 90-year-old woman in Ohio. She was part of some kind of service where they check in every day, and if they don't check in, they get a phone call, and they get another phone call, and if they don't get that, they send police around to check on them, and all of those things. Several phone calls and police knocking on the door. She was not aware of, because she was too busy playing games. The woman had missed several phone calls and the sound of the cops knocking on the door because she was just really, really locked in on gaming, which is amazing. It doesn't say what game she was playing. I like to think it's like fucking Titanfall or something like that. Who knows? Who knows what she was playing? Anyway, last thing. Stop Killing Games had a session at European Parliament recently. There's a video here from Europe Echo. The URL will be in the notes, but if you want to just look for Europe Echo, it's one of their more recent videos. And it seemed like it went pretty well. They laid out their plan, their thesis on what Stop Killing Games means, and it's not like the game has to run indefinitely or anything like that. They're not trying to make things retroactive. All they're saying is when the publisher decides that they're not going to support the game anymore, they do their absolute best. They make the best effort to ensure that either the game remains playable offline, or there's some way for the community to keep it running. And I did think it was interesting from other people in the parliament talking about things like setting up a library for video game preservation. There were some people talking about how IP law doesn't apply. There was another person talking about how consumer law, that the current kind of video game licensing deals are extremely consumer hostile and these kind of things. So it seemed like it went pretty well. it's a short enough video. It's like 40 minutes. It's a bit dry, obviously, because it's European Parliament. There was a pretty funny segment where I'm not sure who it was, but they just slipped in like 20 video game references. It's pretty funny. It's a bit cringe, but you know, you may have seen the video making the rounds, and that's arguably the point of it. Get eyeballs on it. Why is somebody in the European Parliament dropping so many video game references? Oh, it's because of the Stop Killing Games thing. Oh, what's the Stop Killing Games thing? And so on. You know, like it has a point. Anyway, and we'll leave. Trackman is probably the big game this week, so leave that to run in the background. Anyway, that is your news from the 13th to the 19th of April, 2026. Galaxy Game Showcase was pretty disappointing overall. The Metro feature is pretty good. Metro 2039. Obviously, they have a little bit more to show off. The full feature thing was maybe 20 minutes. Lots of new games this week. Arguably too many games, one might say. Maybe take a break. But, you know, I kind of think there weren't that many big games last week. You could have taken a break there. Anyway, lots of them that I have in my backlog. I'll get around to them at some point. I know under my face it says, oh, we're currently playing this, so these are the next games up, and that hasn't been true for quite some time. I am planning to fix that. Not fix that, like what the games are, but I actually get back to playing games on the channel. I'm just trying to find the time for it. It's been tricky. Find time. Anyway, industry bullshit. It's good that like the Ubisoft Halifax people did get something out of it. Out of having their studio just unceremoniously closed, and that the union that they joined and arguably cost them their job did at least protect them in the way that a union is supposed to, as best they could. Anyway, Ashes of Creation thing remains extremely messy, and I don't think we're going to see the outcome of that for quite some time. Xbox Game Pass, as we said, there was news already that they've changed the price of it, and we'll talk more about that next time. But at least they're trying something, because they gotta do something to turn things around. And developer Fortune's Run, like, I thought that game was dead, effectively. And yeah, it has not been a long time with them out of prison. Wish them the best, and if they decide that the best for them is to not continue development, that's, you know, that's do what's best for yourself. But if they decide to keep going, cool, because the game looked good. You know, they're gonna be interesting. Anyway, yeah, that's it from me. Maybe we'll have a game, and we're not gonna have a game on the channel. I was gonna say we were, but we're probably not. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.